Hello everybody and welcome to Jurassic Wildlife. Today we're going over the true cost of owning a snake. Maybe you've been wanting to get a snake for months now, or you're just started getting into the reptile community and you're interested on how much it would cost to have a snake of your very own. So we're going to be going over how much every little thing of owning a snake costs, from their housing to what you feed them to replacing their heating and their lighting. We're going to be going over all of it. We're also going to be going over different life stages. If you buy a snake in their hatchling state and then raise them up to an adult, it might be slightly more expensive than if you were just to buy an adult snake off the bat. It's important to note that this cost is highly variable. You could probably find all the items I'm listing for cheaper somewhere, whether it's secondhand or from a different company, and you might also be spending more money in the long run because you might want to buy something even more extravagant, a giant enclosure, more lighting, more heating, so the price is variable. It also depends on what species you're putting in there. So if you're buying a very large snake, it might be more expensive because you need to spend more on a larger enclosure. You might need to use different lighting and heating. You might need to buy larger prey items. So again, variable. The items and the price of these items today is tailored around Antaresia species. So these are your children's pythons, spotted pythons, pygmy pythons, and Stimson's pythons. For example, the enclosure size is tailored to Antaresia species. The heating and the lighting choice, the amount of foliage, the prey items, the frequency we're feeding them, it's all tailored around this genus of species. Starting off with the snake. This cost of your snake can vary from $10 if you're getting a ball python overseas, or if you are getting a $30,000 snake. It is a giant range. So that makes up a big portion of the cost you're going to spend. Generally, I'm going to meet in the middle and say we're going to spend about $300 on a snake. We've already spent $300 on the snake, hatchling or adult. Now, if we raise a snake from its hatchling state, we're going to be having to buy the items for a hatchling and then also buy the items for an adult. So we're going to have to upgrade these items. First, the enclosure. Let's say we're going to spend around $40. This is referencing the Jurassic Wildlife website and the hatchling enclosure we have for sale on there. Now we need substrate. You could use paper towel and save some money, but I'm going to say that we're using Gypsy because some people like to use a loose substrate and we're just picking Gypsy in this scenario. So Gypsy from the Jurassic Wildlife website is $24.99, and when we're putting this substrate in a hatchling enclosure, we want to change it very frequently. So let's say, but we're not using a lot of substrate since it is such a small enclosure. So let's say a bag lasts us about a year, which means initial cost is $24.99 for the first year for just substrate, but we're also going to be paying $24.99 every single year until they reach adulthood, which we might be paying even more because we need more bags of substrate to fill the larger enclosure. Now we need heating. You can get a 5-watt Reptile One heat mat from Amazing Amazon for $19.95. For the hatchling enclosure, I am skipping lighting because the enclosure is so small and they're usually not in there for very long. Antaresia species, because this is tailored towards Antaresia species, you could probably go without the lighting to save some money and just give them lighting in their adult enclosure, so we're not including the cost of lighting in this hatchlings stage. Now, we need a thermostat to control this heating. I'm choosing the EasyStat Reptile One brand, and I'm going to buy it from Amazon, which is $90. Now, we need some hides. We're going to do just the minimum, so 2 small hides. 2 small hides, or extra small in the case of what you would purchase on the website, from the Jurassic Wildlife website, is $3 each, so you're only spending $6 on hides. If you wanted more hides, if you wanted to add 3, or you could fit 3 in your enclosure, then it would be slightly more expensive. Now we need some foliage, we need some clutter, we need some enrichment. So if we use the hatchling enclosure from the Jurassic Wildlife website, you generally only need 1 good piece of foliage to cover that up, majority of it, so like 80% coverage. And let's say we're also buying our foliage from the Jurassic Wildlife website, we would only be spending around $10 if you choose one of the cheaper options. Now we need climbing opportunities. I'm going to be using a dowel from Bunnings, so it is like a long wooden stick, and we are going to do the 4 millimeters thick and then 1.2 meters long. I'm referencing this from the Bunnings website. And that stick is only $2.70. Okay, so now we need a water bowl. So I always recommend to use ceramic because the material prevents bacteria buildup. So if you're buying from the Jurassic Wildlife website, a small ceramic water bowl would be about $18. Now we need to include our prey. we're assuming that for the first 6 months we're owning our hatchling, we're going to be feeding them fuzzies, and we're going to be buying from the rat ranch. And then the other 6 months, so we're counting this as the first year, we're going to be feeding them hoppers. So for the first 6 months, we need 26 fuzzy mice if we're feeding them weekly, and each fuzzy mice is $1.54 based on their current pricing. So we're going to be spending $40 on fuzzies for 6 months. Then we're going to move up to hoppers, which are $1.75 per rodent, and we're going to be feeding this weekly as well for 26 weeks, so 6 months, and that equals $45.76. If you plus this together, this is $85.76 for a year's worth of rodents, fuzzies, and hoppers for a hatchling. Now you know, if you want a hatchling snake, initially for the first year, you're going to have to spend around $297.40 just on the items. This is not including your snake. And then if you were to continue in this way of care, you would need to be paying annual costs for substrate and for prey items. And this annual cost would be about $110.75 every single year. Realistically, we're going to need to upgrade this snake to an adult enclosure relatively soon. You're probably not going to be keeping them in this hatchling stage for many years. So for an adult enclosure, let's figure out the cost. For the enclosure itself, I'm using the cost of $562.95. This is for a custom enclosure from Habitats at Home that is 90 centimeters long, 60 centimeters deep, and 61.2 centimeters in height. Now, the substrate. We're going to be using the same substrate, which is Chipsy from the Jurassic Wildlife website, $24.99 per bag, but this bag is not going to last us a year. We're going to need 2 of these bags per year. We're estimating we're changing the enclosure every 3 months, and we use a bag for every 2 changes, so 4 changes a year, you need 2 bags. So every single year, we'll be spending $49.98 just on substrate. Since we're in our adult enclosure, we're going to be implementing lighting in this enclosure. So I am going to be using the Arcadia 24-watt Pro T5 UVB kit 6%, and we're going to be buying this from Hatched. So this is $159, and we need to replace this yearly. So this is also adding to our annual cost. Although we're spending $156 on this lighting initially, this $156 total is not the yearly cost. The yearly cost is only $56.95 because all we need to do is replace the bulb. We don't need to replace the fixture that holds the linear tube. After this, we need heating. We're going to be doing an Arcadia Deep Heat Projector 80 watt based off the height of the enclosure. You could use the 50 watt if your enclosure is shorter, and this is $67 from Hatched. Now we need hides. If we're using the plastic hides on the Jurassic Wildlife website, they are only $5 each for the larger size, which is the size small. The hatchling size is an extra small, so if we're going to be using 2 of those, that's only $10. Now for foliage, we can use the $10 piece of foliage that we used in the hatchling enclosure and use it in our upgraded adult enclosure. So let's say we're only going to be spending an additional $40 on foliage. Because this enclosure is bigger, we want a lot more foliage, but we still are going to be carrying over that one piece. So total, you'd be spending around $50. Now, climbing opportunities. You could use the ones that we used in the hatchling enclosure. The only issue with that is they're probably a bit too thin, and they're probably too short if you cut them to fit that enclosure. So let's say we're going to just buy a new one. We're going to be doing a 12.5 width by 12.5 millimeter thick dowel that is 1.2 meters long, and this is only $6.80 from Bunnings. Also, if you don't know what Bunnings is, Bunnings Warehouse, it is like a trade store. You might not have it overseas, but we do here in Australia. Almost done. We need a water bowl. We're going to be upping the size of our water bowl in this adult enclosure, so we're going to be spending $20 on a ceramic water bowl from the Jurassic Wildlife website. Last but not least, prey. We're going to be spending $80 a year on prey items, and this is for an adult mouse, which is $2.97 every 2 weeks. So this is going to be $80 a year. All right, so total An adult, the initial first year, once we upgrade, will be $995.73. If we were buying an adult right off the bat, then we need to include the cost of the snake, which we're averaging about $300, so it would be $1,295.73 if you were to buy an adult snake. Now, this might be a little bit more if you were going to spend that $50 on foliage instead of carrying over that $10 worth from the hatchling enclosure, or you're getting a small enclosure, it might be less. So again, variable, but generally it's that much. And then also the yearly cost is about $70 more than a hatchling. It's $186.63 because we are doing more substrate and we're adding lighting, which needs to be replaced yearly. Our prey items are also more expensive per rodent, but because we're feeding them less, we're actually spending $5 less per year than we are spending with a hatchling. All right, well, I hope this was helpful to you, and of course you can tailor these and find different products for cheaper, find different companies to buy from, maybe even spend more money if you want to be more extravagant, get a bigger enclosure, maybe provide lighting right off the bat, and again, it depends on your species, so the bare minimum of your species might be more expensive than what I have been talking about today. So variable, but it gives you an idea about how much you're going to spend. Reptiles are not just a fun little pet that you can just impulse buy. You need to plan, you need to make sure you have the funds, and you need to make sure that you're giving them the home that they deserve, and you also want to enjoy keeping them. You don't want to get them out of impulse and then realize you're spending too much money and you now have to give them away because you didn't think about it. Thank you very much for listening or watching, and I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye!